Welcome to Conversations with Big Rich. This is an interview-style podcast. Those interviews are all involved in the off-road industry. Being involved, like all of my guests are, is a lifestyle, not just a job. I talk to competitive teams, racers, rock crawlers, business owners, employees, media, and private park owners, men and women who have found their way into this exciting and addictive lifestyle. We discuss their personal history, struggles, successes, and reboots. We dive into what drives them to stay active and off-road. We all hope to shed some light on how to find a path into this world we live and love and call off-road.
Whether you're crawling the Red Rocks of Moab or hauling your toys to the trail, Maxxis has the tires you can trust for performance and durability. 4 wheels or 2. Maxxis tires are the choice of champions because they know that whether for work or play, for fun or competition, Maxxis tires deliver. Choose Maxxis. Tread victoriously.
Have you seen 4Low magazine yet? 4Low magazine is a high-quality, well-written, four-wheel drive-focused magazine for the enthusiast market. If you still love the idea of a printed magazine, something to save and read at any time, 4Low is the magazine for you. 4Low cannot be found in stores, but you can have it delivered to your home or place of business. Visit 4lowmagazine.com to order your subscription today. On today's episode of Conversations with Big Rich, we have Dave Wong. Dave is a Trail Breaker winner at Trail Hero. He's unlimited driver in We Rock, has quite a few podiums. He's also the runner-up this year of the Texas Top Gun Shootout, which was a first-time event at K2 in Mason, Texas. And he's an ex-Californian that made the trek to southern Utah. Dave, it's really good to have you on the air and talking to you about your history.
Well, thanks for having me, Big Rich. It's an honor. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts. There's a lot of really good people on there. I'm honored to be on here.
Well, you deserve it. So let's get started and jump right in on where were you born and raised?
So I was born not too far from where you were. I was born in Fairfield.
Oh, Fairfield, okay.
Just north of you, that North Bay area out in California. And then we moved to Livermore when I was really young. And then we moved to Pleasanton when I was 4. So we did a lot of moving around. And then when I was 8, my dad moved our family up to Sonora, California, up in the gold country.
And what was the reason for moving? Was he military, or did the job do it, or?
So my dad was a teacher, actually.
Oh,
he was a math teacher, and his passion was coaching basketball. When I was born, I think the first week I was alive, I went to a basketball game. Of course, I don't remember it. It's just what I hear.
Right.
But my dad, he grew up in San Francisco, in Hunters Point, which is not the best area.
Right.
And he wanted to raise my sister and I in somewhere a little more wholesome and safer. And so he went to a wedding up there in Sonora and fell in love with it up there. So he said, that's where we're going.
Yeah, it's a real nice area. It's part of that Highway 49 golden chain of cities. Columbia, Sonora, Jackson, Placerville, Auburn, Grass Valley, Nevada City. It really is a nice location.
Yeah, it was a good place to grow up there in the foothills of the Sierras there.
Right. And so that was Pleasanton made the move. That was about the time you started school, or was it Sonora where you started school?
So I started school in Pleasanton.
Okay.
And then funny thing, for people that know the Bay Area, when we moved to Pleasanton, wasn't going to date me a little bit too, but Pleasanton had one stoplight.
Wow.
Yeah. So started school there, we still walked to school and parents didn't worry too much. There was a huge park across from our little neighborhood, and that's gone. It's all houses now, but
That's too bad that they removed parks to build houses.
yeah. I think there may be still a small park in that area, but it was huge when we were there.
Right.
Of course, maybe it's perspective. I was a lot smaller then.
There's a lot to be said for that. There's a there's a town called Woonsocket, South Dakota, and my grandfather grew up there, and they had a little hotel in a main street square, and there was a pond in the middle of the square, the lake, I would say. But I was there, oh God, it was before I started driving, but not quite, right at the beginning of my teens, I think it was. But I remember that lake being big. And Shelly and I drove through there a couple of years ago, and I was like, okay, they must have filled in the lake because the lake was, if it was an acre, it was, I'm giving it credit where credit wasn't due. So, yeah, it is perspective. Absolutely. So then Pleasanton, you started school there. Dad was a math teacher and basketball coach. Did mom work?
Mom didn't work. When we moved to Sonora, their friends that we went to their wedding, they told my parents about a restaurant that was for sale, and above the restaurant was the house. So they told my dad, "You could buy this restaurant. You have a place to live. You have a business." So that's what they did. They bought that restaurant. It was called Scandia Smorgasbord. Up in it was actually in Sugar Pine, just above Twain Harte, which was above Sonora.
Right.
And so we lived above the restaurant. My mom ran the restaurant. And shortly after that, my dad started coaching at the high school in Tuolumne, Somerville. And then he became a counselor there.
Okay. So your mom became a housewife to restaurant owner.
Yeah. She ran the restaurant, also cooked, and it was a smorgasbord. So my sister and I, anytime we were hungry, we could just go hop in line, and it was we never went hungry, that's for sure.
I guess not. A smorgasbord, yeah. Man, I'm glad I didn't have that as a kid. God knows how big I'd be.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's the genes, I think a lot of it's just genes.
I do. I agree too.
There was a lot of chocolate pudding that I put down as a kid because that was one of the desserts.
A lot of chocolate pudding. That's awesome. So then that area is pretty rural. It's not a lot of, the neighborhoods are kind of small. Everything's built into the canyons, just like here in Placerville, pretty much. What was it like growing up in that area?
I liked it. I think it was a great place to grow up. We had, when we bought that restaurant, the people that owned it before, their son raced dirt bikes. So there was a dirt bike track behind the restaurant because it was just open land behind there.
Nice.
So I had a huge parking lot to play around in when the restaurant wasn't open or was slow. I had that dirt bike track behind us. And then as I got into dirt bikes more, I could jump across the highway, hit the railroad bed, and just go for miles. And as a parent now, I don't know how my mom ever put up with it because I'd be gone all day on a dirt bike. She wouldn't know if I was dead or alive, because she couldn't check on me.
Right. I think things were so much different back then growing up. I mean, my parents both worked out of the house. I think from at least about the time I was 6 or 7, Mom was working in San Francisco. Dad was doing the same thing. And, as long as I was home when they got home, or I had my chores done when they got home, it didn't matter. As soon as it started getting dark, there was always a set time for dinner, so you came home for that. But on the weekends, it didn't even matter. You ate what, if you weren't there for dinner, you didn't eat, or you had to warm something up, and
yeah,
but there wasn't any fear. I never feared about, getting kidnapped or, I mean, everybody gets into injuries and stuff like that. But, those things that parents fear nowadays weren't there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think times change. They will continue to do that.
Right. And now that we can monitor kids, it's so much easier for us to do that as parents, or even since we're staying with my parents, we have this thing, Life 360, that we
Yeah,
have
I use that.
okay, yeah, we have the my mom on it, so that, and we started that when we weren't here after she had her congestive heart failure, and so we could keep an eye on where she was at and what was happening. And we still have it. So now she follows us. The whole
Yeah.
rest of the year, it was like, okay, what are you doing there? And we tried to sneak up on her one time and come back to visit. And she was, all of a sudden I get a message, what are you doing in Nevada? Because we had been in like, Texas or something. And it was just kind of funny that she's watching us as adults, where,
Yeah.
when we were kids, that never happened.
Yeah. I'm sure part of that's you're always going to be her kid.
Yeah. Yeah, probably so. So then you started riding motorcycles. That's your first foray into off-road. Did you ride bicycles before the motorcycle?
Yeah, of course, BMX bikes were real popular when I was a kid. We went got a go-kart, hand-me-down go-kart from one of my dad's buddies. And when we moved there, I was 8. And I probably didn't get a dirt bike until I was 10 or 11. So it took me a couple of years of working on my mom so I could get one, because she was against it.
Mothers are always against motorcycles.
I can't blame her. It's easy to get hurt on them. But I don't know. Boys will be boys, and you're going to have to learn by falling down, whether it's running or whatever.
True.
So, but yeah, I got my first dirt bike, was just a RM50. And it was kind of the beginning of my parents realizing how I was going to be, because brand new RM50, big deal, a lot of money for my folks to spend on me on something they don't know if, next week I'm going to be into something else. I rode it for a while, and then I was learning how to take care of it, clean it, and air filters and what have you. But my dad had a little tiny shop down by the well. It was the well house is what it was, but had a little shop there with his tools. Well, I took my dirt bike in there one time and tore it all the way down to the frame. And my dad came walking in, because I'd been around for a while.
And it wasn't broken.
It wasn't broken, no. I just tore it down to see how everything worked. And he came in, and you could see the disgust on his face. And all he could say was, "I hope you know how to put it together." And he walked out. So, and that being a parent now, I get it. But at the time, I was like, I thought this is what you do, I was just seeing how it worked and trying to make it as good as possible, take care of it. So,
was your dad mechanical?
well, that's the other thing. He wasn't very mechanical. Well, I shouldn't say that. He was fairly mechanical, but it wasn't. I don't think he's definitely not as much as I am. Just he didn't have the interest.
Right.
He'd have a hobby, like he rebuilt the Austin Healey. He rebuilt the motor with one of the neighbors. One of our neighbors was very mechanical. So one of the motors in one of our trucks blew up, and they rebuilt it. Old Ford F100. So I think he was handy enough, but it wasn't like he was a mechanic.
Okay.
So.
But he had tools.
He had tools.
And that to a kid, mostly male kids. I know girls do it too. Don't everybody start sending me messages. But typically, the male child is the one that has to open that toolbox and figure out how to use all them tools, figure out where everything goes. I get it.
Yeah. I remember my dad used to take care of the cars themselves too, service them, change oil and stuff. And I think that's probably what started to get me interested in that.
Right. So at any point, did your dad start helping you put the bike back together, or was it all on you?
It was all on me. And I think he was proving a point. I'm not sure if he thought I could do it or not, but either way, he was going to prove a point.
If you start it,
So,
you're finishing it.
yep.
That's a good lesson right there.
Yeah. Well, my dad, he was a counselor at the high school I went to too. So he'd been around teenagers his whole life as a teacher. He was 14 steps ahead of me all the time. Whenever I thought I was getting away with something or anything that was going on in my life, he already was way ahead of me. Of course, as a kid, you think you're outsmarting your parents sometimes, but
Oh yeah.
it wasn't happening. He was just letting me think I was outsmarting him.
That's good because I don't think I let my kids get away with it. But I just wanted them to let them know that hey, my line to him was you can't bullshit a bullshitter. So and my son. So anyway,
Yeah.
so let's talk about school. Your dad's he was at the high school, so you didn't catch up to him until high school, then, right?
Right. Yeah, I went to Twain Hart Elementary, played a little bit of sports, not a lot. Basketball, of course. And in high school, there's two counselors. And our high school had 4 grades, 9th through 12.
Right.
So they both took, like one counselor had 9th grade and 11th grade, and the other one had 10th and 12th grade. And then they would stay with that class all the way through. So I had the other counselor just by chance. It could went either way, having your dad be a counselor. He's the one doing discipline. People could really hate you because they don't like your dad. But most of the people like my dad, the athletes like my dad. He was there for the kids. And even the bad kids that he was disciplining, he was real fair. So no one ever gave me a bad time, really, which was nice for me, because it could have went either way.
I get it. My dad was a no nonsense kind of guy, and I can remember there was some kids that I went to school with. I think I was in 7th grade or 8th grade, and these two boys were a year ahead of me, and they were kind of troublemakers. Meaning they were always into getting into shit, and I can remember something happened right out in front of our house. I think they broke a bottle or something, and my dad forced them to clean it up. And I'm there in the garage and driveway working on my Volkswagen I had gotten, and all I could think about is, man, those guys are going to kick my ass,
Yeah.
the next day at school or whenever they saw me alone, because that's the kind of guys they were. Well, they argued with my dad, well, we'll just have our dad, come over and, tell you what it's all about. My dad says, send him, but you're cleaning up this damn glass. He made him clean up the glass. And the next time I saw those kids, I thought, okay, here it comes. But I wasn't going to run away or anything, take it. And they came up and goes, your dad's kind of a jerk, but, he's a good guy. And it was like,
Yeah.
wow, how did that happen,
Yeah. It's there's so many stories that I have, and some of them, I heard after the fact when I'd run into people when I was 30 years old. They'd tell me a story about my dad, and he would do things like kid would get a detention, and he'd tell the kid, hey, you can go sit in the library for an hour and do schoolwork, or you can go out in front of the gym, the lawn there, clean up all the garbage, and when you're done, you're done. It might take him 15 or 20 minutes. But my dad saw it as he did something disciplinary and he got his school clean.
Right.
So it was a win-win. And then I remember one day kids came running to him, there's a fight. These two guys are in a fight. You need to come stop them. And my dad always had a cup of coffee. And he tells the guy, all right, yeah. And he starts walking, and they're like, what are you doing? Come on, we got to go stop him. He's like, well, I don't want to be there too fast. They'll be all full of energy. Let them get worn out first. And he'd walk over there. So he was just, his heart was always in the right place for the kids.
So he was a good role model for you.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of those things about your parents you don't realize till later
Right.
because they're disciplining you and you're pushing back. And one of those things for years, I kept hearing stories. Well, one of the ones when I was going to tell you about when I was 30, two of the basketball players got thrown in jail one night, screwing around. I don't even know what they're doing. But I remember my dad leaving in the middle of the night. I didn't know what it was. Well, they told me years later, my dad went down and bailed them out. And he asked the guy, hey, why don't you call your mom? His mom was a single parent. And he said, there's no way I was going to call my mom. She would kick my butt. So I called you. So my dad went and got him, took him home. That's all I know about the story. They didn't tell me anything else. But I have a lot of respect for my dad, which you don't always have when you're growing up.
Right.
But as you get older and you see things in a different view, it's pretty cool. And it's pretty cool. I see these teams jumping ahead just a little bit. But
yeah, no worries.
The parents spotting their kids at these Wii Rocks and stuff, and the family event that it's become is really cool. And it may have always been that way, but what I've seen lately is just really cool to see that family out there working together. And I tell you what, I couldn't probably work with my parents when I was that age.
I know I couldn't.
But it's neat to see.
Yeah, I agree. I really like that aspect in the rock crawling. And even though, we ran racing, the rock racing as well under Dirt Riot, the two are so much different, not just in the styles of what's happening, but also the way, the event is run, where with rock crawling, you're always together. You're not maybe miles apart or, in your pit working, right up to the time that the race is, and then during the race and right after the race. There's so much more time spent with the other families. And that, I think that's one reason that people feel comfortable bringing their kids, and especially how many girls, that the dads have out there doing it. It's pretty dang cool.
It is cool.
And some stick around, some don't, but they at least the parents are giving them the opportunity to come out and give it a try. Typically the parent's more into the off-road than the kid is. I mean, very, very rarely is it, the kid shows up with a Jeep and says, Dad, you need to take me out. I think Mackenzie was that way. I don't think that they wheeled before that. I'm not sure, but I remember hearing the story that she got a Jeep, talked her dad into, hey, I want to compete, and then they showed up. And it's really awesome that families are able to do that. I think it's important.
Yeah, Mackenzie and her dad. Mackenzie really wanted to go pro. I think it might have been her second or third year. And the parents came to me and said, what do you think? And I know as the conversation went on, I figured out that the parents wanted me to say, it's probably not a good idea. But I told them, yes, 100%. If she wants to go for it, you should go for it. And the parents, the mom especially, looked at me like, you serious? You're just going to sell us out like that? And I'm like, and that's what I realized. I'm like, oh, you wanted me to be the voice of reason.
Yeah.
But I'm here being a cheerleader.
Exactly. Because that's our, I think that's our job with other kids. When Rich was small, I coached his football teams. He played baseball for a while. I didn't, I never played baseball, organized baseball. So there was no way I was going to get into coaching on that, or basketball. But, football was a different story. I love that sport. It hit that youth age. There weren't very many parents involved, and if they were, I think they were involved wrongly. They didn't have the encouragement. And I think that with the rock crawling, that the encouragement that everybody gives with the to each other is incredible. You know, the parents, the sports parents are typically so self-involved with their own child that their child should be the starting quarterback or the star running back or the pitcher or the forward, the guy that should always have the ball and be doing everything, that they don't see where their own child actually places in that hierarchy. And I think that's completely different when it's an individual sport, which in school doesn't happen a lot, or school age kids, unless it's like cross country, track, or swimming maybe. So because everything else is team sports.
Right.
And not everybody thrives in team sports.
Yeah. And the competition becomes amongst each other, which is unfortunate.
Right.
You're supposed to be a team.
Right. And that can be difficult. Coaches, I didn't understand it until I started coaching, that the dynamics of dealing with all the kids at once. And, you still want to give them the opportunity to win. But, I guess with the youth sports before high school, it's a lot easier to give everybody a chance. And most times, I mean, I've seen some teams that, won't play their extra players except for the 3 downs, like at Pop Warner, 3 or 4 downs that they have to play. They just don't get the playing time because they're not the best player. And that win at all costs is in young sports. I think it's important, but I don't think the win at all costs is important. I don't believe in playing soccer without a ball, like I've heard some places were doing.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I heard that, it was a few years ago, that some youth soccer league, they actually were playing soccer without a ball. And I don't understand that. I mean, that's just like, MMA then. They're out there kicking each other or whatever. I don't know. Drills. But to me, it was kind of stupid.
Sounds like practice.
Yeah. So then, you said you played a little bit of sports. Was that all the way through school then? High school is included?
I did play a little soccer in elementary school and basketball. Played basketball in high school. I know I'm not built for basketball. I'm 5'6", 5'7". I always tell everyone I'm 5'7", but I don't think I've ever been quite 5'7".
I didn't realize that you were that short.
I'm just barely taller than Jeff McKinley.
Huh. You carry yourself well.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I've been putting on the high heels around you or something. I don't know. I'm pretty short. But I've always loved basketball. And then I played golf in high school too, for a little bit, which I wish I had played more, because that's something you can do your whole life. Basketball, I played until my 40s. I'd still go to the gym, play pickup games, but I can't do it anymore. It's too hard on my legs, my knees.
Right.
So
that's what happens with age.
Yeah. I can't count how many times I've rolled my ankle. I can roll it on an extension cord now walking across the shop. It's so loose.
Wow.
But I played some sports, and but I've always been into vehicles. Like once I turned 16, I got off dirt bikes and got into cars. Started working and started with
what cars? What was your first car?
So my first vehicle was a 76 Datsun pickup my uncle gave me. I guess I was 16. I learned to drive in my parents' 78 Bronco, which now with all the popularity of Broncos, wish we still had.
Right.
But that was a cool vehicle, and that was really my first vehicle I went off-roading in. We'd take it up to Lions Lake. In the winter, they would lower the lake, and there was the mud flats. So everyone would go out there, or we'd go up to the snow, depending on what was going on. But I would ask my dad to take the Bronco and go see my friends or whatever, and then I would split out and go wheeling with them all. My dad probably knew, but I thought he didn't know.
Right?
So I mean, we'd spend so much money at the car wash after the mud flats trying to get the Bronco to not look like it was ever in the mud. Um, but it was still worth it. It was so fun. Um, One time out at the mud flats, there was these tree stumps because they'd cut down all the trees when they built the lake. Well, I didn't see one. I ran right into it. Bent the tie rod, bent the drag link. Didn't know it. And about a month later, my dad noticed the tires were wearing funny, so he took it in to see what's going on with the Bronco. And the guy showed him tie rod's bent, drag link's bent. Was it in a wreck or what's going on? So my dad asked me. I just played dumb. Oh, I don't know. So I don't know how that happened. But of course, I coughed it up later once I was living on my own. Had to clear my conscience.
There you go.
But yeah, so that was my first spell of four-wheeling. And then I got my own truck, which was 84 I started driving. So it was a 76 Datsun pickup, and then I couldn't ever leave any vehicle alone. So that was my first experience with mini trucks. Found some other guys with mini trucks, and we lowered it, put a stereo in it. And I did that to every vehicle I ever had. I couldn't leave anything alone. It was going to be lifted or lowered or what have you.
How did you afford to do that? Were you working while you went to school, or was it just saving allowance or odd jobs? What?
So I've always been driven by stuff I wanted. So I always wanted to work because I needed money to get the stuff I wanted. So I started, like my mom, she's put up with a lot with me because I was always on her for something. Like I wanted a dirt bike. Well, they always had high school kids doing the dishes at the restaurant. So once I got my dirt bike, I was all over it at work. So I'd get money. And I wasn't old enough. I couldn't even reach into the sink to clean the pots and pans. But when I was 12, she put me to work doing dishes. So I got to keep half of whatever I made. The other half went into savings. And then when I turned 16, I went and got a job at a sandwich shop in town called the Velvet Creamery. It was a small chain of ice cream parlor sandwich shops. And the lady manager there, when I went in when I was 16, I was 4'11" when I was 16. I was
Wow.
Really short. I had to sit on a pillow to do driver's training, which was a whole nother story because the girl was a year ahead of me that I was doing driver's training with. Really good looking girl. And here I come with my pillow ready to drive. Real studly. But so the lady didn't believe how old I was. So I had to prove it to her. And I kept going back till she hired me at that sandwich shop. And then by the end of high school, I was the assistant manager there. I was just really driven to work. So, and I was driven to work because I wanted trucks and what have you.
Stuff. Yes.
Stuff, yeah.
So then you're working at sandwich shop through high school. Did you continue working there after high school?
No, after high school, I went up to Chico State, up in Chico, and my dad was a counselor, so school was the way. That's what got him his career. But I was not a student. I was smart enough in high school to just kind of skate by. In college, I quickly learned you have to try a little bit harder. And I wasn't really willing to try harder. But I was still working up there. I got a job at the body shop down the road from where we were living, and I got a job in the evenings at Holiday Inn doing room service. So, and the body shop was really cool because he painted funny cars. And the funny cars, I just thought it was cool, you know, big flashy paint jobs on these things. But my job and another college student, we color sanded all day long on these funny cars. We had no fingerprints from color sanding all day. And I quickly realized it's not as fun as I thought it would be.
Right.
So, and then the guy down the way was friends with him. He had a window tint shop, tinting cars. And he came down and asked us, hey, you guys have any friends who want to do window tinting? I had to let a guy go. And I immediately raised my hand and said, I'd like to try it, because I was done with color sanding cars.
Right.
So Jim Koshak was his name, and he hired me. And for the people that know, I've been window tinting ever since. So I tell people that's what I learned at Chico State, is window tinting.
Well, that's good, because most people, I think, that went to Chico, you know, I hate to say this, it's kind of like Santa Barbara. You know, when you go to colleges there, you end up, you know, majoring in party.
Yeah, I did a little bit of that. It was near the time where the riots were. The riots were actually the year before I got there at Chico. And then the second year I was up there, they had the riots again. And it was one block from where we lived. We were there when it started. And the cops came in from both ends of the block. So they trapped everybody, which was a terrible idea. And it was just a big college party. It wasn't really a riot until the cops got there. But they wanted to shut it down, understandably. Luckily, we knew how to get through the fence onto the next block where we lived. So we just kind of, once the cops showed up, we went home real quick. But there was a lot of that up there still when I was there. But one of the other things that was really cool about up there was the cook at the Holiday Inn taught me to salmon fish.
Nice.
In the river there, Butte Creek. So those are like the highlights of my college career, were growing up, obviously, but learning to window tint, get a career, and you know, doing some salmon fishing with this Japanese cook that was just took me under his wing and saw a kid that was trying to grow up.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a quick 2 years at Chico State. Then they said you can't come back. So
Chico said that?
yeah, I didn't have the grades to continue on, you know, because I could be talked out of going to class real easily.
Right. I understand that one. That's for sure. So then after Chico, did you move back to Sonora?
I did. Moved back to Sonora and started working. Met another guy that very influential in my life. He hired me. He hired me at a pest control place of all places, and his name's Don Wolf. And I continued window tinting just out of my dad's garage and working at the pest control place for Don. Well, it's Clark Pest Control, which is another pretty big chain out in California.
Right.
But as time went on, Don went and bought his own pest control company, and I started just doing more window tinting. And my dad said, hey, there's too many people I don't know at my house. Well, that's fair enough. He's like, you have to do something, you know, get a shop or whatever. And I was pretty worried. So I was talking to Don about it, because he went on into business on his own, and, you know, the overhead, and I don't want to fail and don't want to be caught in a lease or something. So Don said, hey, come rent part of my shop for me. $300 a month, covers everything. You can walk away anytime you want. So I spent 5 years renting from him and building my window tint business, and having him as a mentor. He's about 5 years older than me, I think. He really was. You meet a lot of people through your life, you realize they're very influential, and you don't even know it at the time. But he really helped give me some direction and get me headed on my way. So I continued to window tint, and then being into trucks and stuff, we want to lift our trucks, wheels, tires, all that. My buddies were like, we need to figure out cheaper way than we'd always have to drive an hour to get our trucks lifted or anything. I said, well, I have a business. I wonder if I get a wholesale account with somebody, you know, and called Trans-American, and they wholesale truck accessories, and used my window tint business as the cover, and they gave me a wholesale account. We started fixing up our own trucks. And then pretty soon we're fixing up other people's trucks, and my window tint business started expanding. And over the years, we went from window tint to truck accessories. We did detailing for a while. We, good friend of mine, Nate Larson, had a stereo shop in town. He got a better job offer for one of the companies. And so I bought his car stereo business and added it. So over 27 years, we just kept growing the business and paying for stuff, like we were talking about earlier.
So the motivation was the same.
Yeah, it always was. There was always some carrot I wanted, whether it was, you know, I was into Harleys for a while. We built Harleys also for a while with Don. Don Wolf was into Harleys when I started renting from him, and I thought, well, those look cool, so I started building those for a while. But I don't know, we're kind of all over the place, but it was pretty much anything that I was into became something that we were doing for money.
So that's good if you can take a passion, and even if your passions change, but you know, and you can make a living doing that, it's phenomenal. I mean, that's what I did with the rock crawling. You know, I really enjoyed being around the events. Even though I like trail wheeling, it was being around the events and just everything that was going on, that competition scene. And so, you know, when I moved back to California, I knew exactly what I was going to do. But when did you meet your wife?
My wife, so let's see. It was after I was rock crawling. So the lineage is that I was building Harleys for a little while, and then I bought 85 4Runner to flip so I could build a custom Harley for myself, just make a couple bucks. And then had a customer come in and say, hey, those 4Runners do awesome on the Rubicon. I was like, what's that? What's the Rubicon? He's like, well, we go rock crawling up there. And I'm like, what's that? I had no idea. And we're talking late 90s. So ended up not selling that 4Runner, fixed it up to be a rock crawler, and never built another Harley. And then we were wheeling years after that. I'd had my first tube buggy I built. It was a little 2-seat rear steer. Well, it's big compared to the 2-seat cars now, but it was rear steer buggy, and me and my buddies would go wheeling all the time, and it was probably the most capable rig out of my group of friends. So we were at Moon Rocks, and I had taken my buddy Nate Larson, that had the stereo shop, with me. And one of my friend's wives brought her sister over and said, hey, can you give Jen a ride? You know, she's never been rock crawling before. And, you know, we just take her for a ride in your car. That'd be cool. And so I looked at Jen, and she looked not super excited. I think she felt like, you know, she doesn't know me, and Jamie, her sister's just throwing her in someone's car. And I said, well, if she wants to go, that's fine. You know, I'll take her. I go, she doesn't want to, that's fine. And she was being nice too. She's like, well, if you don't want to, that's fine. We did that back and forth for, seemed like 5 minutes, but I'm sure it was like 30 seconds. Finally, I said, just get in the car, I'll take you for a ride. And if you like it, great. If not, you know, we'll just come right back. You know, it's Moon Rocks, so it's, you know, you're 20 feet away from the wheeling when you're camping there.
Right. So
I took her for a ride, and we were having a good time, getting to know each other. And it was really cold that weekend. It was a Memorial Day weekend. Half the times you're there on Memorial Day, it'll snow.
Right.
And it did snow. My poor buddy Nate, Jen and I were hitting it off so good that I kept taking her out wheeling. And and Nate lost his seat that weekend. He still doesn't let me forget it. Like, he just put a post on Instagram again, reminding me how that trip went for him. So if it was just some random girl that one weekend, I would feel a little worse, but it ended up being my wife. So that's kind of, you have to take one for the team, buddy.
Yep, there you go.
So,
The bro doesn't always prevail.
yeah. So the other funny part of that weekend was, it was so, I hate being cold. There's some people that will probably listen to this that know it, but I just hate being cold. And it was snowing that weekend. We were staying in my aluminum box trailer. And we had a little buddy heater in there, but barely worked. Well, Jen was staying in her brother-in-law's camper. So I wormed my way in there so I could sleep in the camper. We weren't doing anything, but I was sleeping in a bed with my wife, my Jen at the time, before she was my wife, but I just wanted to be warm. So I had to, that was my
That was your
part of the
motivation.
reason. My motivation. Yeah.
Part of it, at least.
Yeah.
Or at least
But,
that was your excuse.
That too. I do like girls, but but yeah, I just wanted it was just as nice just to be warm. So it was weird. I hadn't dated anyone in a while. I was previously married and divorced for probably about a year when I met Jen, and she was the first girl I ever had any interest in since my divorce. I was just still, I'd look at girls and think she's pretty, but she's trouble,
Right.
So just after being through a divorce, I was still a little bitter, but Jen fixed that.
Good. Good. And she's a great lady. Anybody that's never met her, for sure. So then you're working, you got your shop going on and stuff. You're wheeling. The first time we met, you were in a club, and wasn't it that you guys came up to Donner?
So the first time I met you, I believe, yeah, I think it was probably the first time I met you was in Vernal.
Oh, okay.
And that was when I was in my divorce. I took a trip for it was about 4 weeks. I traveled the Western United States with my rock crawl. And it was the year BZ. This is the way you'll know what I'm talking about. It was the year BZ put screws in his tires.
Oh, Jesus, yes.
So we were just traveling. My friend Matt Van and I were just traveling the Western United States, and we go here and there and ask the 4-wheel drive shops, where do you wheel? And we'd go wheel. And we knew that We Rock was going to be in Vernal, so we made it one of our stops. And we even thought about competing. And we showed up, must have been the day before the event. You guys were setting up courses, and I met your son. And we told him, we were kind of thinking about competing. He says, well, that's great. He goes, but go look at the courses, because he saw our car. He goes, your car's pretty big. It was on 42-inch swampers. And he goes, but if you want, that's fine. And he goes, I don't know if it was you or him, but said, if you don't want to compete, we need judges. And if you judge, we can get you a hotel room down at I think it was a Motel 6 here in Vernal.
Yep.
Well, we were staying in my that aluminum box trailer. And then every few nights we would get a hotel room. We were on a budget, but we still needed a shower once in a while. So when you said hotel room, we're like, yeah, we're in. We'll take it and we'll judge. And then you invited us to dinner down there. We went to, it's funny, I can remember it like it was yesterday. Other things I can't remember at all. But I think it all goes back to what I'm passionate about,
Right.
I thought rock crawling was super cool. I still do. So we went to the Golden Corral for dinner, and we ate with you guys. Just, you guys were so accommodating and never met us before, but hey, come to dinner, do this and that. But yeah, so that was the first time I think I met you and your son and your daughter. We judged. You split Maddie and I up. We were on courses next to each other. And I think I might have told you the story, but Tracy Jordan, I think his spotter was Moose.
Okay.
He's a big guy. Well, Maddie called the cone on him. Moose was on the other side of the car, but he was convinced that there was no way they hit it. So he got all up in Maddie's face. And Maddie's not a real big guy either, but he stood his ground. And you came over and you talked it out with him. I said, no, you saw you hit the cone, it's cone. And I remember poor Maddie, I took him on this trip, and now he's getting screamed at by this 6'4" big old dude. You know, it was a great part of that trip, doing that judging and then hanging out with the teams. Went to the local bar, I think that night, one of the nights, Friday or Saturday. It was a cool event. Definitely made me want to be part of it, even if I couldn't compete with the current car I had. After that, that's when we went to Donner. It was a group of us. Maddie was there, and we would do recovery for you.
Right.
And I think you guys liked it because I had a rear steer car that could get in places. There wasn't as many rear steer cars, I don't think, then. So I could get to places where I could be useful. Went to Riverside. Riverside?
Oh, down there at Paris, California.
Paris.
Yes.
Yeah. You had that big drop with, I think you put hay bales on it.
At the bottom of it, so that, because it was way undercut.
Yeah. So we did recovery down there too. And the one thing I wanted to say on here was I always wanted to compete, but I never thought I was capable, or I just felt like it wasn't a level that it was reachable, you know?
Right.
There's a better word for it, I'm sure. But I was always too intimidated to do it. I think it's gotten better in general, more approachable for people. But if you ever have, for anyone who's listening, if you ever thought of competing, the teams will all help you. Don't be intimidated and just do it. And, you know, I think you have a catchphrase at the end of this podcast that's kind of feeds to this. Just, if you want to do it, just go do it. It's what's the worst that could happen? I think part of me is I don't want to go do something and look like a fool because I have no idea what I'm doing. But you always have to start somewhere.
Right. And I think one of the keys that all of us that love this sport and want to see it continue and grow is to try to get new people into it, but make them understand that, you know, you could be the greatest trail wheeler and obstacle wheeler out there, but competition is truly a totally different animal. There's a game, you know, it's a game there, or like a board game like chess. You know, it's not just, you know, there's a strategy to it. And when you're trail wheeling, there's no strategy. You know, nobody's picking your line except for you. You know, with the rock crawling, we are picking people's lines. And people get frustrated and don't have fun because they expect to do really well. And I try to tell everybody, you know, just come out and enjoy it, have fun, meet people, learn and understand that it's a strategy type competition. And, you know, some of the people that are total A-type, you know, personalities, which you have to do this anyway. You can't be a total recluse or introvert. You know, you've got to be able to put yourself out there. But if you're coming out there to the first event and you expect a podium, especially if you jump right into the pros, you're really you got your sights set wrong, and you could be really in for some disappointment. And I can remember telling Kevin Carroll that the first time he came out. You know, it's like, Kevin, I know who you are, I know what you do. You know, Jeff McKinley too. You know, you guys, because they're hard on themselves. You know, you've got to understand that this is not, you know, big obstacle breaking. big trail breaking where you got all this time and you can approach it, 60 different ways until you finally get the line. You have to see it, and you have to trust yourself and your spotter. And I think that, if people come into the sport with the idea that, hey, I'm going to have fun, I'm going to learn what this strategy thing is, then I'm going to go after it. And I think that that's a key for people to have success.
Yeah, I agree. I tell people all the time that it is a game, Some people are good at the game and some people are learning the game. Like you said, they come from trail wheeling. So, and I tell them too, trail wheeling, you want to do the biggest line. You want to be the one in the group that's able to do it more than anyone else. Whereas in rock crawling competition, you might be able to do the biggest line, but is it the smartest choice? What's the risk here? What if you roll and you don't finish? What's the odds of that? That's where the game comes in. It's not always the biggest line that's the best choice.
No, it's the smartest. Of course, that's why we put those sometimes stupid bonuses there, is to trap some of those guys that, Kyleman was really good. He always wanted to do the biggest line. I mean, he wanted he wanted to get that bonus that everybody else bypassed to show that, he could do it. Whether he would win or not, he would go for it. And, you'd see some amazing stuff. Jeff is more calculating now. At first he was kind of the same way, but you watch guys that really, Tracy would always go for it because he was convinced he could do it. And typically he would, he's pretty dang good.
Yeah.
And then there's certain guys out there, you just know they're going to go for that bonus because it's like the coolest line out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And Cowman is that guy too. I see that.
Yes.
But for a lot of the new guys, there's that bonus line that's a little crazy. There's probably a time and place for it. If you're way behind and everyone else is bypassing it being smart, well, maybe it's worth a shot. But if you're neck and neck with the guys at the top, well, maybe it's not always the best idea.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I can never sucker Jesse into those.
He's so stinking good. I love that guy, but he's so stinking good. But the sport really needs those Jessies though, because I know a lot of guys like myself that it gives us someone to go after,
Right.
He sets the bar. And then if for some reason you can beat him one weekend, it's a big deal for that competitor that beat Jesse. And I know on the other side of that, it makes it not very fun for Jesse sometimes because everyone's out to beat him.
Right.
There's
a lot of pressure on him.
Yeah. And then it becomes a lose-lose because he's expected to win. So if he wins, everyone's like, well, yeah, of course he won. But if he loses, they're like, how'd you lose? What's wrong with you?
Right.
So, because they expect him to win. But
he gets mad. He gets mad at me whenever I tell him, the best thing for the sport is for you to lose an event here and there. And he goes, man, I just hate when you say that, but it's true. If nobody ever beats him, eventually people will go, okay, I just can't do it. That it got that way for a while with Tracy, especially when the courses in that mid to late 2000s, at 2008, 9, the courses were, and 10, the courses were pretty brutal. A lot of times you didn't have a choice, that the regular line was that what I would probably put as a bonus line. And, you either did it or, you failed. And, we footballed a lot of cars in those couple of years. And I think that, at one point people were just like, I remember some guys up in Washington tell me, we're just going to mail our entry fees to Tracy because he's going to win anyway. And I don't need to suffer $10,000 worth of damage, and then it was like, okay, now we have to rethink our our strategy on the courses so that we're not destroying cars.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot of guys. Well, it's changing slowly, but it was a lot of blue collar guys that they only had so much money they could spend on the sport,
Right. Especially at that time, because, during that recession, a lot of guys were contractors, or fabricators, or like yourself, business owners that, as the money became tighter because of the recession, people weren't spending it in the, they weren't building new decks or building new houses or whatever. They were just trying to keep what they had, that, you didn't, the income wasn't there. So guys, started backing off, because if it was going to cost them so much money to compete and to rebuild, why do it?
Yeah.
And then that's when Ultra 4 came along, or King of the Hammers, and everybody thought, okay, well, it's one time a year, I can save all my money, go do that event. And, everybody likes to go fast, because even if you're the slowest one out there, you're going as fast as you can. That's cool. Rock crawling, it's technical. You got to hit the mark. And if you're expecting, you have certain expectations of yourself to not come in, at the bottom, or, you're going to win the event and you're not winning, it becomes hard to swallow, because it's not, you don't have that fun at going fast. So.
Yeah, I could see that too. It was that recession time was for us. We had our second child in 2010. So I decided it was a good time to, during the recession, buy a house and have a kid and rebuild my rock crawler into a more competitive car. I sold off the whole rock crawler except the axles, and was going to build a comp car, because I've been competing in you'd sold it by then, but Cow Rock's the event you started in my old car, like in 07 through 10. And I thought, I want to build a more competitive car. I kept tweaking my old car, went to sticky BFGs and air shocks instead of coilovers, kept making it more of a comp car, but it was still a trail car size. So I sold it all off and was going to build a comp car and buy a house and have a kid, and quickly found out my budget didn't allow for all of that. I was pretty committed to the house and the kid. So the crawler got put aside for years. I ended up selling those axles even. Fast forward to, luckily it was 2015 when I decided I wanted one more shot at rock crawling. But in between there, some teams picked me up to navigate for Ultra 4, King of the Hammers, and Baja 1000, Vegas to Reno. So I was still able to be in the off-road world, racing world, even though I couldn't afford to compete in it. They were putting me in the navigator seat, and I was getting to go have fun. And it kept my juices flowing for competing. And so in 2015, I wasn't getting any younger, and asked my wife if I could do it one more time. I wanted to go rock crawling again. She said yes, and I'm sure there's times where she regrets it, but I told her let's try it for 2 years, just see how it goes, but let's give it a 2-year commitment. And I got a hold of Jesse, and didn't really know him at the time. Anyone that knows Jesse, he's not real big on building turnkey cars, and I wanted him to build me a car. Kind of had to talk him into it. Gave him my sob story of wanting one more shot. I was just going to jump right into unlimited class. So in 15, started building the car. And let's see, I guess it was the end of the year. So anyways, by the end of summer of 16, we had a car ready to go for his super crawl event. And started back at it. But it was the longest build ever. If you consider I started building one in 2010 and then didn't really get it done. But I feel very fortunate that I was able to get back to it. with the help of Jesse and him and his wife. I'd go up there every weekend and help build this car with him. And he and Sarah would let me stay at their house. And they became really good friends. I consider them some of my best friends. My wife, she's the fun one. She's there's a group of wives at the event that feed everybody and invite everyone over for drinks. And she's the entertainer. And I kept telling her about Jesse's wife. She was pregnant and she's doing the tile in the kitchen. And this girl's just amazing, you know. She's just a go-getter. I remember we're working out in the garage. Sarah's in the house and she's 8 months pregnant, and she's trying to get the laundry room clear for to do the tile in there. So she's trying to move the washer and dryer out. And we had no idea. And we come walking in to get a soda or something, take a break. And Sarah's fuming. She's like, "Didn't you hear me talking to Jesse?" We're like, "No." She's always banging on the wall. We're out there banging on stuff too, so we didn't hear it. We probably just thought it was one or the other, you know, he or I making the noise. She's always trapped in the laundry room. I was trying to move the washing machine out, and I got trapped in between the wall and the washing machine, you know, with their belly and everything. And that was the time that I said, "Well, I'm going to go back out in the garage." This is good luck, Jesse. So, but I kept telling my wife about, you know, Jesse and Sarah. And for one, I think she was doing way too much, but she was just doing it, you know. She was retiling and everything before the baby got there. But my wife started kind of not like that I talk so well about another woman. It was kind of funny because I can't call it jealousy, but it was kind of jealousy that I was talking about her, you know, how amazing she was and nice. But now, fast forward, we start competing. They meet each other. They hit it off. They're now best friends. So it's funny how the dynamics, like if I talk good about her, it's not okay. But if she talks good about her, it's just okay. Yeah. So I think they probably talk more than Jesse and I. And I just, you know, it's really been neat through this process of rock crawling and building a car to come across such good friends. And I see this story all over. This is just my story of this. But right. I think rock crawling brings a lot of people together, like-minded, that were probably friends before they even knew that they were going to be friends.
Right. So let's talk about the events that recently that you've done very well in. You know, you've done over the last couple of years. Shelley wanted one of the questions she wanted to ask me was, how did you feel about being kind of dubbed Mr. Fourth Place?
It was, you know, it's like a lot of things when you're competing. You hope for podium finish, first place. Realistically, you want to be, like, for me, I always wanted to win. I'm competitive, no matter what it is. If we're playing cornhole or checkers, you name it, I want to win. But I'm also realistic. So when I was competing, I wanted to win or I wanted to be on the podium. But I definitely didn't want to be last. I wanted to be like at least mid-pack is my realistic thing. Be mid-pack or better. The fourth place thing, it was one of the craziest things I've probably ever experienced in my life. Just because you couldn't do that if you tried. And what was it? Fourth place for over a year, right? I'm pretty sure.
Right.
Just every single event, fourth place. At first, I was a little frustrated and really picking apart, you know, like, well, if we would have done this, you know, we could have been on the podium. And then after a while, it was like just becoming comical. Like, and I'll never forget at Donner, Jeremy Winters and I were in the same group on the second day. And I think we had one or two courses left, and we were real close, fighting for fourth place. He was in fifth and I was in fourth, but I was ahead of him by a couple points or something. And he's he's like, well, what are you going to do? He's like trying to get all the info of what I'm going to do on each course and everything. And I said, it doesn't matter. Whatever you do and whatever I do, I'm going to be fourth place. It's just what's going to happen. It's been happening for a year. It's going to happen again here. Like, it's beyond our control. It's just the universe is going to make me fourth place. You could do whatever you want and I'll still end up fourth. So, and sure enough, he ended up rolling right after that, wrecking Jesse's car, because he borrowed a car. And anyone that knows Jeremy, he's either going to rub you wrong or you're going to laugh. That's
Right.
kind of how people take him, because he's just sarcastic all the time. And I love the guy. His sense of humor, I get it. When I first met him, I did not like him. I thought he was a total ass.
That's right. There was a lot of us that did that.
Yeah, and you just got to see through that.
Right.
I mean, he's like a lot of people. Jeremy is Jeremy, but Jeremy also has a great sense of humor if you can see it. So after he rolled, I'm like, I told you. I go, it doesn't matter what we do. I'm going to be fourth. And sure enough, I got fourth that weekend. Yeah, it went from frustration to just, you got to laugh, and it was also something that probably I'll be the only one that's ever done it. So, I mean,
well,
take it for...
Cody made you your own podium for fourth.
Yeah, it was actually, instead of a podium, it was a tray. So you stood in the tray.
Exactly.
And then to get rid of that thing, I took it real well. I thought it was funny. Cody doing that. And, I have a pretty good sense of humor. So, it was not, I took it well, I guess is what I'm saying. But at the same time, I kind of wanted to get rid of it because I didn't want the curse or whatever you want to call it. So finally I decided, talking with a couple other people, I'm like, whoever gets fourth place, I'm going to give it to. And then they can sign it or whatever. And then whoever gets fourth place after that, they can give it to them. It'll be like this thing that gets passed on to the fourth place guy. Well, when I decided that, Jacob Reeves ended up fourth that weekend. So I gave it to him. I don't remember if it was Cedar City. I don't remember where, and then I think he's so nice that he's never given it to anyone else, which really wasn't the plan. Now I feel like I stuck it with him. So, but he's just, he's a nice kid, and I don't know if he has the heart to give it to someone.
Right. That they may take it the wrong way. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you don't want it back.
I don't want it back. No. It was that era hopefully is gone. Although I did end up fourth at that Texas Top Gun shootout, which now whenever I get fourth, it is a little bit more bitter. It's like, we don't want to go down this road again.
So you only got fourth at Top Gun?
Yeah.
I thought you were runner up.
No. To be honest, I kind of blew it. It was shortly after that I did a video too. I lost my focus on an obstacle that ended up being a lot more difficult than I thought. So I kind of overlooked it. It was only the second obstacle.
Okay, yeah, the middle there, right?
So I got a little flustered and frustrated. And then when I got through there, I wasn't clear-headed enough to just stay focused on the job at hand, and just choked. So, and that's like you were talking earlier. Once you have some success, if you're not successful, it's frustrating. And I've had some success in the past couple of years, so you expect more out of yourself.
Right, you've been at the top of that podium.
Yeah. So, and I really feel, looking back at that, even going into that course, I felt like I had a really good chance of winning it. But that's why you play the game. That's what my dad used to always say in basketball. It doesn't matter what you're ranked. It's that's why there's upsets. That's why you play the game.
Right.
everyone has their day. And it wasn't my day, but it was still a great event. I hope they continue that on, and I hope more people come to check it out. It was my first time in Texas, and the hospitality was top level. The rocks are top level, huge boulders there. And actually, I think I'll be going down there for We Rock this year. That's our plan.
Oh, awesome.
So
Cool. Cause it is a great place. The two parks that are there, Catempsy's got the bigger rocks. The others got more rock, but I would say, I think Catempsy's overall more difficult, has more difficult stuff and stuff that, if we could ever clear all of the deadfall out there, there's some stuff out there that, they would make really good runs for that, for their Top Gun shootout. And I hope that motivates those guys at K2 to get out there and clear more of that brush. I know we try to every time we go in there. Jake or I, Jake did a lot of clearing this last time. In fact, some of the stuff you guys ran in the shootout was stuff that he had cleared when we were there for We Rock. So yeah, there's some really good stuff out there. And like you said, the hospitality, I love Mason, Texas. It's a great little town. And, someday I hope to retire there.
It's a really cool town. When I went into the town square area there, it's like you went back in time. It was really cool.
Yeah, it's a great area. That whole rocky high country, that's what they call it. For us that live in the mountains, or right next to the Sierras or the Rockies, it's not. We wouldn't even call it hills.
Yeah.
But yeah, the hill country there is really nice, and especially that stretch that has all that granite. That'd be great. I hope you do, and I hope that was one of the. Now that we've got more people that have done that and watched that and seen those rocks, that they'll come on out and compete. So, what was talk about Trailbreaker this year, because you won that?
I did win Trailbreaker. So this year we had a couple. I always say we because I'm so used to being the team, but my two biggest wins this year were just me. Nothing against my team. I have great spotters that I work with. So the shootout was the one that came to Hammers back in February, and then of course Trailbreaker, which I think is, and it's harder to brag about Trailbreaker now that I won because I don't want to sound like I'm just bragging about myself, but I think it's one of the purest, find the best rock crawler, the best driver events. Not being able to watch the other drivers, just they try and keep it a level playing field. Obstacles that will hopefully weed out everyone to find who's the best. Trailbreaker is, during Trail Hero event, which is run by your son, Little Rich, and I've been in that Trailbreaker event 3 or 4 times now, and this year it was pretty epic. I mean, it's probably, I would consider it my biggest win, for sure, just because of the way the event is, looking for the best driver. And this year I was the only one to make it through all 3 courses. So a lot of times it comes down to time. My first Trailbreaker event, I made it just as far as anybody else, but I wasn't as fast. So I lost, which is fair. But this year, being the only guy that made it felt pretty good because it didn't come down to, 4 guys made it, but you were the fastest.
Right.
And I happened to be the last driver. It's a BFG sponsored event. So the way it played out, no one had made it up the last obstacle. Tim from BFG's, the guy that was winning at the time before I ran was Jesse Haynes, which is no surprise. He made up everything and super fast, except for the last obstacle. He couldn't make it up. He timed out. So now Jesse Haynes on Maxxis tires is winning the event. And your son tells Tim, hey, just so you know, as of right now, Jesse's leading this event. And then I come through, last vehicle, make it up the last obstacle. Everyone knows that I won. I know I won. I'm on BFG, so Tim's happy now for BFG because it's his sponsored event. Crowd's going crazy. Your son's trying to make it up the last obstacle with a trophy to give it to me. It's like, it's harder to walk up some of these obstacles than drive up them.
Oh, yes.
So people are trying to help him up and trying to help the photographers up. And it was just what a great moment for me and for the event. I don't know. I'm still at a loss for words sometimes. My daughter was there. My wife was there. It was about as good as it gets.
Excellent. So what precipitated the move to Southern Utah?
So I came down for Trail Hero, that first Trailbreaker I was talking about. I came down for that, and I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was that, because I also came down for some of your We Rocks when it was in the bowl at the resort.
Right.
But I want to say the first time I came down was for Trailbreaker. And everywhere we go, my wife and I always kind of look at houses and see what they cost there, because we're from Northern California. And in the foothills, houses aren't worth a lot, but in the Bay Area, crazy pricing. And so wherever we travel, we'd always kind of check out houses and check out the area and, daydream about what it would be like to live here, wherever we were. And of course, for myself, seeing all the off-roading, I was like, this is pretty cool here. And being able to wheel year round, where out in the Sierras, you get snowed out for the winter. And then my wife's looking at jobs too, because she does HR. She's like, oh, look, the resort's hiring HR. I could do that. Just kind of playing around, joking around. Well, we go back home after the event, and my wife's emailing me houses and jobs she could do out here. And that's when I realized, oh, you're serious. I'm like, I was already 100% in. I just wasn't going to do it because, it's a family decision. But once she kept going, because usually once you get home, that just ends. You're not in another city. You're not checking out anymore. So that was probably, 2017 maybe? Yeah, I guess 2017. And then we didn't move until 2019. But we just kept looking at the area and kept trying to put it all together. I had to figure out what I was going to do with my business. And in the meantime, my dad had moved to St. George, of all things, not because he knew we were looking, just they wanted to move out of California. They lived up in Lincoln by Sacramento. It's my dad and my stepmom. And they decided that this area was for them. They got golf courses and nice weather. So they moved down here. So then it made the move even better for us, because now I'm down here where my dad is. As he gets older, I'll be able to help him if he needs it, or, take care of him, or have him over Thanksgiving without having to have him fly, or stuff like that. So that just made it even an easier decision to move here. But if you're into off-road and outdoors, this area is just an amazing place. And plus it's, some of these California people are probably going to be mad at me, but it's not California.
Right.
I was in business too long in California, and just saw them just continue to put more weight on business owners and the general public with fees and taxes and you name it. Was just becoming ridiculous. And the rate that the fees would go up was insane too. So, and it's a little more wholesome here. I feel like raising my daughter here has been really cool. The kids, it's like you step back in time here compared to, you can still ride in the back of a pickup here. I know Californians are going to lose their minds, but you can hop in the back of a pickup and go down to the local park and unload all the kids or whatever. You just can't be on the freeway. You don't have to wear a helmet here to ride a motorcycle, but there's common sense involved again here, where I tell my daughter, yeah, you don't have to wear a helmet to ride a motorcycle. You probably should, but no one's telling you you have to. So,
Right. Utah comes with less warning labels.
yeah. And I was in California almost my whole life. I'm 54 now. We moved when I was 51. I would go to Texas for like a convention or something on Riverwalk in San Antonio and think it's ridiculous. They don't have a handrail here. You could fall in the river. There's going to be drunk people coming out of the bars, fall in the river. But I was so brainwashed, and obviously when I grew up, you didn't have to have a helmet. You had to have common sense. Like, if you think you could get hurt, don't do that.
Yeah, remember, coffee is hot. That's,
Yeah. So it's refreshing here. Yeah, we bought a house in a neighborhood. I'd lived in the country for a while, so we never really had close neighbors. And I lucked out. I have some of the best neighbors here. Quite a few of them have kids my daughter runs around with. So it's, I'm super happy here. Should have done it sooner. I miss all my friends in California, but I invite them all the time to come see me. We got an extra room. Come hang out. Love to show you this place.
So are you in Hurricane or St. George, or where's your house located?
I'm actually in St. George.
Okay.
And as you come from Vegas, we're the second exit. So it's right off the Southern Parkway. We're barely in Utah.
Right.
So
okay.
It's about as south as you can get.
So you're out there just on the edge of the strip. Which if everybody south and east of St. George is what they call the Arizona Strip, and it's Utah, yes. Arizona, and the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And there's miles and miles and miles of dirt roads and places to go across there.
Yeah. So out the back of our neighborhood, you can take, like your Raptor or side by side and drive all the way to Mesquite on dirt roads.
Yeah.
And Mesquite's probably, 35-minute drive on the freeway. So I have friends, I haven't done it with them yet, but they'll take their UTVs, drive into Mesquite, get a hotel for the night, and then come back. And it seems like almost any direction from St. George Hurricane, there's areas like that where you can just take off, whether it's hiking, biking, UTVs.
It's a huge play area, outdoor wonderland. I mean, you can snow ski. You go up to Bryan Head, which is only like an hour and a half away, if it's snowing. You've got the lakes, you got the river, you've got national parks. You have that big, like I said, the Arizona, Utah Strip area. So any kind of off-roading you want to do. We used to go to Sand Hollow before it had a name. There was no lake. Down there on the highway going into where like Walmart is, that was the only road to the south. And so we would park down there, unload, and then start wheeling from there. And we'd go down there for the sand dunes because we were living in Cedar City. We didn't think about the rocks down there because the rocks in Cedar City were fine for what we were doing. We just went down there to go fast in the sand dunes.
Yeah.
And now it's just there's so much to do down there. It's incredible, mountain biking, everything. So it is a really good area.
It is. It's unfortunately it's not as appealing to live here, just as far as home prices. The home prices have gotten crazy, but as far as outdoors, you really almost can't beat it. Such a great place for recreation.
Right. So then what is in the future for you guys? Have you reopened your business yet?
No, I don't think I will.
Okay.
So I was in business 27 years and you've seen, I enjoy people, but man, I was burnt out on customers. I've been tinting windows with John Hemble, one of the other competitors. He has a window tinting business. He tints homes and commercial windows, no cars, but so I tint with him and I do some sales for him, just go out and find jobs. But I haven't really figured out my next step, which has got to come pretty soon because I'm going to run out of money. But I'm looking more into like real estate type stuff, investment type stuff. I don't think I want to do retail again. I think I've had my fill of that. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed what I did. And I have a feeling it'd be better here. Part of what I didn't like was, like we talked about, the regulations of California, but also there's always a handful of customers that are your customers and they're going to keep coming back. But every time they come in, you cringe a little bit. And it's, I don't know, just kind of worn out on it. It's too bad because I enjoy people, but those few will ruin it if I'm in business where I have to deal with them.
Right.
So I do tint some cars still for my friends and friends here, but it's not. I'm not trying to make it a career.
Right. Okay.
So
Fair enough. And you said Jen is working at Sand Hollow Resort.
no, that was one of the jobs we were talking about coming down here. She's like, well, I could work here or there,
Okay.
but she actually works for the lower 5 counties of Utah, and she does HR. It's pretty cool organization. They go after any federal funded programs, and because the counties, our county, Washington County, is the biggest county in southern Utah, but the other counties like Iron County, some of the other ones are very small, so they don't have the ability to go after the manpower to go after these federally funded programs. And the programs are all mostly based around seniors, Meals on Wheels type things, or rides to the doctor, or rental assistance. During COVID, they had a rental assistance for anyone affected by COVID. So, and they have an office here in St. George, which is the biggest one. And then they have an office in Cedar City, and then they have their medical side that gives medical assistance programs. They even have an office over in Kanab. So she does HR for them, and they'll have politicians come out and they'll show them around and show them these different programs. So she took a busload of people from DC, her and her boss and a few other ones, all through Utah. They just took a road trip. It's got to see a whole bunch of sites, and it's a pretty neat job. And I guess I like it because it's helping people too. It's for the greater good.
Right. Cool.
So.
And your kids are thriving there in southern Utah?
Yeah, finally, my son, a lot of people don't even know I have a son because my daughter always comes to the events, but my son doesn't. He's 20. He's working actually at a window tint shop here in town for Nick Melby. So I had helped Nick for a little bit, and he needed some help. So I got my son working there. And as far as I know, they're all happy working together there. So that was a big achievement because he'd never had a job yet. So he's doing well. And then my daughter, she's really the most responsible one in the whole family, more than my wife and I. She's looking out for us all the time. And well, anyone that knows me, I'm just another kid in this family. My wife's the only responsible adult. So I'm out playing as much as I'm working. And she's got to tell me when it's enough playing. So, but my daughter, she's doing real well. She's 12 now in 7th grade. And I don't know, she's raising herself. She's an amazing child. She's got a lot of friends here, and they just run around like crazy.
Cool. So then you're just going to try to figure out what you're going to do. Maybe get into real estate or real estate investment. It's not a bad gig.
Yeah, I know you have that rental in Mason, which actually I saw. I took a picture of it on purpose. Woody Swearigan ratted you out which place it was.
Our hotel,
So,
yes. Hey, that's been a great investment for us. We just had somebody contact our local manager there and say, hey, we love this place. We'd love to buy it. And Shelley was like, I can't believe it, but I don't want to sell it. And so we threw the numbers of what we would have to get compared to what we make on it, and for how long, and she's like, no, we'll just hang on to it. And I agree. It's been a great investment, and that's it's not a bad way to go.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Something like that, some kind of rental, whether it's like what you have there or commercial. I'm not sure which direction yet. And that's one of my problems is I will investigate until it's I should have done it 10 years ago,
Right.
It's I feel like my biggest hurdle is myself.
Well, if you ever want to talk to somebody about doing it, Shelley is more than happy to share her knowledge. That's for sure. Because she analyzes and studies everything and has so many different interests in businesses and different endeavors that it's quite amazing. So, if you ever have any questions or, want to talk to somebody, that's maybe not as close a friend, but somebody that would have, your best interest in mind, feel free to talk to her.
I appreciate that. She's it's a great time to get to say that she's been an amazing person. As I've come back to the sport, she's just always happy to see people. It's always fun to come see you guys. So she's a sweet lady, and you're very lucky.
Yes, I am. I am very lucky. I have to say that. There's no doubt. Everybody that knows me or has known me has said the same thing. So I can't believe I found somebody to put up with me.
Well, I'm happy for both of you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, I think we've touched on all the bases, Dave. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would like to talk about?
No, I feel like I run my mouth a lot. So we could do this for a couple more hours, I'm sure, but we don't want to put people to sleep.
There you go. Well, I appreciate you spending the time with us this morning. I really hope for the best for you and your family and everybody involved in your life. It was great to see you head to Southern Utah. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and you guys deserve all the awards and riches that can come your way.
I appreciate it. And I guess the one thing I didn't say was, for anyone that's coming out to the sport, feel free to reach out to me anytime. If you have questions, I get a few people that reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help with advice, anything like that, if it helps. So you can reach me on social media anytime. Whatever I can do to help other competitors or off-roaders, or whether it's coming to a competition or just coming to Southern California or Southern Utah and want some advice on where to go. It's the off-road family is my family. That's the way I look at it. So if you need some help, give me a shout.
Excellent. I appreciate it, Dave. You have a great day.
You too. Thanks again, Rich.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure.
Yep. All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's another episode of Conversations with Big Rich. I'd like to thank you all for listening. If you could do us a favor and leave us a review on any podcast service that you happen to be listening on, or send us an email or a text message or a Facebook message, and let me know any ideas that you have, or if there's anybody that you have that you think would be a great guest, please forward the contact information to me so that we can try to get them on. And always remember, live life to the fullest. Enjoying life is a must. Follow your dreams and live life with all the gusto you can. Thank you.